both square numbers? No, 12 is not a square number, right? That is why it's not a difference of squares. Okay, on the last one we did on the orange homework, it was 9, right? 9 is a square number, so it worked. Okay, but we can solve this a different way. Okay, remember that we can set these up equal to 0. X squared minus 12 equals 0. And 3x plus 1 equals 0. And we've solved square roots before. Okay, how we solve this? All right, bring the 12 over. Right, we add 12. And that gives me x squared equals 12. And how do you do squaring? So how do you undo squared?
A square root.
Square root, right? We square root both sides. Okay, so what's going to happen here is we need to break down the 12, okay, if we can. All right, remember how to do this? It's going to be a blast from the past, but what makes 12?
3 and 4.
3 and 4, okay, and what's 4? 2 and 2, right? And then when we do this, we're looking for what?
The ones that are the same.
The ones that are the same. Good memory, Alvaro. I don't even think you were here at that point. The ones that are the same, the pairs, right? Leftovers, I put in a box. Pairs, I put in a circle. What goes outside?
2.
All right, 2. All right. Pairs. Okay, and what goes inside is leftovers. Okay, and remember, it's x squared. Okay, so that should be giving me 2 solutions. It is. It's giving me a positive and a negative solution. So positive 2 radical 3 and negative 2 radical 3. Okay, so I'm going to write it out twice just so that we can see that. Okay, 2 radical 3 and x equals negative 2 radical 3. Okay, because that's what this means. Plus or minus means 2 things. Then we can solve this one. How do you solve 3x plus 1? Minus 1.
Yes.
Then you divide by the 3, and you have negative 1 over 3, which was one of our possible zeros at the top, but that would have been a long time getting to that one. Oops, sorry, I should have put x equals right there. Okay, and our x equals 1 from the top. Okay, put it all in weird positions, but here are 4 solutions. Okay, x negative 1/3 was one of our possibilities, but again, that would have been one of the last ones I would have tried to do synthetic division with because negative ain't a fraction. Okay, and these wouldn't have been on the list because they're not rational. Okay, it was the rational roots, and these are radicals. All right, they're not rational. So there's my 4 zeros, okay, that we were looking for. I probably will not give you one that is this super complicated, okay? Because you could spend 30 or 50 minutes trying to figure out what direction to go, right? Because there's a lot of options. We've learned a lot of different ways. But I just want to show you that these things do work, okay? The methods that we're learning do work. Any questions on this one? Okay. The next 2 are not nearly so long. I'll use blue and orange on the next one. Okay. But I'm going to flip it on to the next page because I need a little bit more space. Okay. These last 2. Right, number 3 and number 4. Write a polynomial function with the following zeros. Okay, so they want us to write a polynomial function. They basically are giving us the answer, and they want to know, what did you start with? What was the polynomial function that you began with, okay? Because all we found on the whole last thing was what are the zeros, okay? This is saying x equals negative 2, x equals 3, and x equals 6. Okay, so they're telling us there's the answers. So we're going to work it backwards to figure out what is the polynomial we started with. Okay, so if you remember, when we find our zeros, the first thing that we did was, this is x equals -2, right? And before that, the -2 had been on this side, and we had set this whole factor equal to 0. Okay, so we're going to work that backwards. We're going to put this 2 on the other side. Now our factor is x plus 2 equals 0. Okay, and that's one of our factors. Okay, remember, like again, we're just going backwards. Okay, same thing with this one. This would be x equals 3. Well, we had set it equal to 0, so to undo that, we're going to subtract 3. X minus 3 equals 0. Okay, so our next factor would be x minus 3. All right, and then what's going to happen with the 6?
-6.
Okay, it's going to be -6, exactly. Okay, because again, we're just doing it backwards, so opposite order. X minus 6. So remember, our factors are always the opposite sign from our zeros. So plus 2 was -2, minus 3 was 3, and minus 6 was 6. So here's our factors. I'm going to write that here. They didn't just want the factors, they want the polynomial. Okay, so we factored those. We undid it. Now we're going to do it back, okay, which was multiplication. We multiplied them together. Okay, we multiplied these 3 together to get our polynomial. So we did this on like the second day of the 6 weeks. We remember we did, if you multiply 3 things, you would take the first 2 and multiply those together first. And then once you get that answer, multiply it times the third thing.
Oh, okay.
Remember? I don't know if you were here.
Yeah, no, it takes a second.
Okay. So I'm going to do it vertical, x plus 2, and then x minus 2. Sorry, 3. Okay, I'm multiplying x plus 2 times x minus 3. That's a 3. Okay, and if you remember, we would do the first thing down in this right-hand position times both things on top first. Okay, -3 times 2